What the heck just happened? I am here live on the Thomas Take Sports podcast once again to answer that question. What the heck just happened with the Buffalo Bills versus the Jacksonville Jaguars? Any given Sunday is usually the moniker for the NFL, and I think it's safe to say that this one, you can chalk this one up as an any given Sunday moment of the 2021 Buffalo Bills season thus far. Any given Sunday, the Buffalo Bills roll into Jacksonville at 5-2. The Jacksonville Jaguars answering the door at 1-6 to get to 2-6 with a 6-9 victory, a nails on a chalkboard game for anyone tuning in, whether you're a Buffalo Bills fan or a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, or even just a football fan living in a van down by the river. Somehow, some way, you were able to tune into this game. This game ranks as one of the worst games that I have ever watched. Not just as, of course, a Buffalo Bills fan, Buffalo Bills podcaster, whatever you want to call me, but just as a pure football fan. This was one of the worst games I have ever tuned into in terms of its entertainment value. I found myself saying very few words throughout the game. I found myself completely frustrated throughout the day, understanding and knowing full well that this game was going to go in a direction that I never saw coming. A 6-9 loss at the hands of one of the worst teams in the NFL. My opinion on that has not changed. The Jacksonville Jaguars only scored 9 points in this one. To show me that they improved, they only scored 9 points. They didn't have to show me anything because they only scored 9 points. That's all they needed. The only thing the Buffalo Bills could have done better than what they did in this game is not even show up. That's how I feel after this one. I couldn't have enough frustrations after this one that diving into this game is going to be a difficult task, because this one is not just painful, it is mind-blowing that the Buffalo Bills found a way to lose this game. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drink chips at the local pub tavern that I was at, and I was so agitated I couldn't even use them. That's how I feel right now. You know that it wasn't a good day when you can't even use your drink chips. You're so frustrated. So with that being said, let's get right to it. I, of course, always want to remind you guys, you the Bills fans out there, that you guys should throw down some comments. I want to hear from you. I want to know what your thoughts were on this loss, and I want to hear what you have to say, because I think that's important to me, and I hope it's important to you that it is important to me. I guess, is that the right way to say it? I don't know. It's important to me to hear from you. I enjoy hearing from you, and I enjoy reading those comments. When those comments pop up, let's get them going, because it makes the show that much better. Rather than me just talking, I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you guys have to say after this loss. So I want to remind you guys, tuning in, whether you're tuning in on Facebook or the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel, let me know what you think of this game. And wow, what a unbelievable game. Unbelievable game. I don't even know where to start. I know where to start. I know where I'm going to start, but I just feel as if this one is just, it's just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing, the game itself. I want to start off by saying that we got a lot of games left, but this one has me worried for the rest of the season. Losing a game like this in this fashion is worrisome for a lot of reasons. But I want to start off by saying thank you guys for tuning in, and fire those comments. So let's get right to it. What the heck just happened? Okay, what the heck just happened? That's the first question. What just happened is that the Buffalo Bills had more than an identity crisis in terms of who they are as a team. But moving forward, answering that question is going to be extremely interesting in terms of how they answer that. The Buffalo Bills have some problems, and I put problems in capital letters because these are very serious problems that could cause a devastating impact towards whether or not the Buffalo Bills can get back to the AFC title game or not, can win the AFC East division or not. New England is now nipping at our heels. We're 5-3. They're 5-4. They've played, I believe they're 5-4. They've played more games than we have. They haven't had their bye yet, but we haven't played New England yet either. So this division is now more up for grabs today as of 5:27 right here, right now, than it was 5:27 yesterday. Because going into today, anyone and their grandmother would have picked the Buffalo Bills to win this game in Jacksonville against the Jaguars, but that didn't happen. The offensive line today is a focal point for me in this game, because in this game, we're going into it with a beaten down offensive line. John Feliciano not healthy. The hodgepodge of Ike Botker and Cody Ford, a former second-round draft choice of the Buffalo Bills, those guys getting a lion's share of the snaps at the guard position at the offensive line, on the offensive line, I should say, today. That, to me, was troublesome and worrisome. When I saw that scroll of the game begin with the starting lineup of the offensive line, I said, oh boy, here we go. Because Cody Ford has done absolutely nothing to impress me. Ike Botker hasn't done much to impress me either. And we had Spencer Brown at tackle. We had Darrell Williams at guard at one point. Injuries and things have happened that have caused Brown to be out, that have caused Williams to be banged up, of course, and have caused players to be playing in starting roles that simply might not even belong on this team, let alone starting at these positions. And today, more than any other day, I was able to kind of key in on this offensive line, recognize that we had some different players, different names on the starting unit, and recognize that these players immediately were not up to snuff against the Jacksonville Jaguars front seven, which the Jacksonville Jaguars front seven is nothing that anyone should ever fear. Are they good? I couldn't even say that going into this game. They looked good today. I'll say it now. Buffalo's front offensive line, they made them look very good today. So I guess they're much better than what we thought they were, or are they? Or are we just that bad in terms of our lack of depth at the offensive line unit? I think it's the latter. I'm not going to you won't hear me give Jacksonville much credit in this game because they scored 9 points. That was all they needed for this one, was 9 stinking points, 3 field goals. All we could muster up was 2. Not only was the offensive line at its worst since Josh Allen's rookie year, but it forced Josh Allen to go back to a habit that was a habit his rookie year. And it's a term that is brought back after this one. And it's a term that we need to discuss. It's a term known as hero ball. Allen and hero ball. Hero ball meaning that when things break down, when things fall apart, when things don't get off on the right foot, when Stephon Diggs is taken away, when the middle of the field is covered well, when we don't have a run game, Josh Allen takes it upon himself to make things happen because he has to. He doesn't have a choice. But there are different situations within a game where a quarterback has to play hero ball, and you say rightfully so. And then there are situations where a quarterback tries to play hero ball, and of course it backfires. But those situations in which Josh Allen decides to play hero ball and it backfires are the most crucial situations in the game. Of course they are. They have to be. Because Josh Allen today was like Tom Hanks in Castaway. He was on an island all by himself. This offensive line hung Josh Allen out to dry in this game. Granted, I say all this knowing full well that Josh Allen threw multiple interceptions in this game, took some really bad sacks, didn't throw the ball away, and when he did, it was a very ill-advised throwaway and a risky throwaway with forced throws, even on some of his completions. I know all that full and well, okay? But this offensive line, it was a true rarity within the game to see Allen drop back, throw a pass, and not have a Jacksonville Jaguars defender in his lap, in his grill, touching him, pulling him, moving him in and out of the pocket, moving him outside the pocket to the left, to the right. It was a true rarity. You go back, watch this game, you will count maybe on one hand the amount of times where Josh Allen dropped back with a clean pocket and was able to throw the football. It rarely happened. As we get to some of your comments, Brett Thomason says it best. 2018 Allen, the hero ball Allen, was what we saw. And that echoes my sentiment in this game that hero ball returned for Allen. Hero ball was essentially a factor in this game. David Reed comes in with a hot take that says the Cody Ford project needs to end. And I could not agree more. If you didn't catch my drift in terms of the Cody Ford discussion, you have a starting offensive lineman out, a second-round draft choice that hasn't lived up to expectations at tackle or guard, coming in for that player that is out. And he does not live up to expectations in this game at all. I mean, in terms of players that were blown up, in terms of players that were completely outmatched, look no further than Cody Ford in this game. And you say to yourself, if this guy can't start for us in a pinch, why is he on this team? If he can't be a backup, what value does he have? Because if he can't be a backup, he's obviously not good enough to start because he has to be a backup because he isn't good enough to start. And if he isn't good enough to start and he isn't good enough to back up, why is he here? And I rarely ever on the show have called for a player at any position to be cut or to lose his job. I understand that these guys, they work their tails off. I get that. But I just have to assess the game as the game wore out, showed up and showed out. Cody Ford was not showing up. He was not showing out in this game. It was a rough day at the office for him, and it could be the end. To David Reed's point, it should be the end. And I think it could be. So let's move on, though. I'm going to get to your comments, too. I see a lot of them piling up here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get to all your comments. So anyone that has left a comment, I will get to it at the end of the show. We're on for 35 minutes. As always, I like to keep it, at around 35 on the live shows. So next up, the lack of a running game is a glaring weakness for this Buffalo Bills team, and it's been a weakness dating back to last year. I talked about it in the first few weeks of this season. I have noticed a much more balanced offensive attack in certain weeks this year than what we saw last year. It hasn't been all bad for this Buffalo Bills rushing offense. It hasn't been all terrible, but it hasn't nearly been good. It certainly hasn't been great. And if you were to take statistics, right? If you were to take the statistics of two running backs on any which team as a tandem, at the running back position, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss could rank dead last. And I'm sure they're either dead last or close to it because they had an atrocious day today. Yards per carry, they're never really high because the Buffalo Bills do not run an offense that features much of a running game, okay? You guys know that. I know that. They didn't really run the ball that well last season. This was largely a one-dimensional offense via the passing game last year. Not much of a run game. But why is this? This is a problem, and it's a problem that is, obviously panned out each and every week. But to me, what I see during these games from Devin Singletary and Zach Moss is this simple. the true rarity that either one of these guys receive a touch in a game, whether it's 5 touches, 10 touches, they have very little of a workload in this offense. And when they do get the football, it appears to me as if Devin Singletary and Zach Moss know that when they do get the ball, it's such a limited opportunity that they try to do too much. They try to zig when they should have zagged. They try to get to the sideline when they need to do. They don't run smart. They try to just make that big play. And sometimes making that big play is not necessarily a smart run. Sometimes you need to run to the sideline. You need to fall forward rather than making that move and falling short of the first down. And we've seen that these last few weeks with Devin Singletary. We've seen that these last few weeks with Zach Moss. And to me, we've also seen the lack of faith that the offensive coaching staff at One Bills Drive, whether it's Dabo, the position coaches, you name it, top to bottom, they have very little faith in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. They've established that they have very little faith in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. If I'm sitting here in Lockport, New York, watching the football game on a TV, I'm assuming that the opposing head coach, that the opposing defensive coordinator, that the opposing team recognizes that they too have very little faith in the Buffalo Bills run game. Just as very little faith as the actual Buffalo Bills coaching staff does. So if that's the case, which it is, okay, I would expect it's week 9. I would expect the Buffalo Bills coaching staff, whether it be McDermott, whether it be Dabo, to somewhat change something about this lack of production from the running back position, whether it's putting Singletary out in the flat, whether it's only running Moss up the middle, just change something up. Or let's throw this thought out there. Why are we going into games with only 2 running backs and Taiwan Jones? With all due respect to Taiwan Jones, a fantastic special teams player, okay? 3 phases in football. Special teams is one of them. Taiwan Jones deserves credit for being a part of that 3rd phase of the game. But he is not a running back. We signed Matt Breida this offseason. Where is Matt Breida? Where has he been? He has been playing. He has been active. I want to see Matt Breida thrown into this offense. Is Matt Breida a immediate impact difference maker? Is Matt Breida Gale Sayers, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Earl Campbell? I'm not saying that he's one of the greatest running backs of all time and that he's going to just run for 200 yards and Buffalo's run offense will be game-breaking. But we have to see something different because we can't keep going into these games with Singletary and Moss just going out there and trying to put together 3 yards a carry. It's just not working. And if you go back and watch the tape of this game, I guarantee you will see Devin Singletary out in the flat on occasion, wide open, with Josh Allen rolling to the left, rolling to the opposite side of the field, and not throwing Singletary or Moss the ball. This team has zero faith in their running backs, and I'm not saying they should, but they make it blatantly obvious that they don't, and that's a problem. It is a huge problem because any team that is one-dimensional is not a Super Bowl team. Tampa Bay, Kansas City, you go back these last few years, yes, they got to the dance with one thing or another. You could say that they have an identity as a team, but you have to be able to run the football in the playoffs. You have to be able to run the football in close games like today. If you had a running back that was 5'11", 220, like a Fred Jackson or a Marshawn Lynch from previous years in Buffalo, we could have had a higher propensity of closing this one out. The chances of closing this one out, putting ourselves in field goal range would have been that much higher, but instead we were forced to pass more and more and more as this game wore on, and the Buffalo Bills offense essentially was in quicksand this entire day. Quicksand in Jacksonville was this Buffalo Bills offense today. I want your take on that. What do you guys think of this Buffalo Bills running game being a glaring weakness on the team? And what are your thoughts on that? How do you think my breakdown was of that? I think that I have a point. Wouldn't have said it if I didn't, of course, but it is just so apparent to me that Singletary and Moss, they might not be the right fit. We need to get better there. And if it means moving on from them next season, we just might have to do that. I like these guys. I don't think that they are bad players. I think that they have what it takes to contribute. Partially, I think it's up to the coaching staff to find a way to make them contribute when we know that this Buffalo Bills offensive line is probably the biggest problem on this team right now. Okay? This defense was out on the field all day long. They only let up 9 points. Trevor Lawrence looked terrible. I mean, this game was not Jacksonville's win. And anyone that tries to tell you that is out of their mind. Jacksonville's defense, they did what they needed to do, but Buffalo approached this game with such a one-dimensional mindset that it was very, very simple and easy for Jacksonville's defense to figure that out. So let's do this here. Allen can't continue to be our leading rusher. Brent, I got a question for you. If there was one running back on this, out there, I don't have a list of the free agent running backs out there right now for next season. But if there was one running back out there, who would that running back be that you would want on the Bills? I'd really like to hear everyone's thoughts on that too. So if you want to throw that out there as well, I like to communicate with you guys as much as I can. Gene Hoffman says, Lawrence looked better than Josh today. Did he, though? I mean, I know this wasn't Allen's best day, but was this Trevor Lawrence's best day either? I mean, it was a 9-6 game. It was a close game. Trevor Lawrence didn't really have to do a whole lot in this game because Buffalo's offense couldn't really show a diverse game plan. It's really simple. I mean, there are offenses in this league over the course of this league's history that they didn't have to be two-dimensional. But those offenses are like the lone exceptions of that. And those offenses largely have multiple members that are in the Hall of Fame. Go to the Greatest Show on Turf with Warner, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Marshall Faulk. You can go to even the Buffalo Bills with Kelly, Thurman, Andre. You could go to the Patriots even. They didn't have much of a run game when Randy Moss and Wes Welker were there with TB12. The Colts were mocked at how bad their run game was. Post Edgar and James, when you had Peyton, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, Dallas Clark. I mean, the Bills will always have this passing offense, and I understand that, and I like that. And if you were to do like a power ranking of, the Buffalo Bills and how they perceive themselves and who they trust, the quarterback is number one. Allen is number one. The wide receivers are number two, and the running backs are dead last number three, like a dead last number three. It almost appears awkward when the Buffalo Bills do finally decide to call a run play. That is how uncomfortable they are running the football in general, running the football with who they have. It is something that is only going to get worse, I think, before it gets better, because much to my frustration, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and the front office didn't change it. And like I said, this was something that was going on last year that Buffalo just didn't change. They went in there with the same old pickers in Singletary and Moss. And I steal that phrase from Walk the Line. You want to go out there and play Folsom with the same old song, same old dance. Why would anyone want to go see that? Well, sometimes people like to see the same old song and dance. When that same old song and dance gets old after a little while, it gets a little stale after a little while. And that same old song and dance really was never a great song and dance. It has to be modified. And I'm not talking about Johnny Cash. You guys know I like Johnny Cash. I'm referring to Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Referring to this run game was not great last year. It's not great this year. And if Buffalo wants to go from being an AFC playoff team, AFC title game team, turning that into a Super Bowl champion, this has to be fixed, folks. This has to be fixed. It won't be fixed this year, though. It can't be, because there isn't a running back out there that would generate a change that quickly in that whole concept. So, all right, let's get to some comments. Gene throws another one down. He says, so your opinion on the Bills and the Super Bowl this season? Judging off of this game, no. Judging off of not just this game, but the fact that even in games that they won this year, the Bills have had a habitual ability to get off to these extremely slow, lackluster, head in the clouds starts to a game, first halves to a game. I go back and look at even shutout victories against the Washington football team, the Miami Dolphins, the Houston game. I look at those games and say, where were they in the first half? Tyler Bass is their offense in the first half. That should not happen. With how good and deep this offense is, it shouldn't happen. But this offense is good, is deep. They have a quarterback. They have wide receivers, but they don't have a run game. And it's something that has to be fixed. They have to find a way to generate a run game, even if it's not even in the run game, to the point of one of my longtime listeners, Samuel White. He said to me recently, if you can't run the football with Devin Singletary in between the tackles, if you can't run the football between the tackles with Zach Moss, get them out in the flat. Whether it's a pass for 4 yards or a run for 4 yards, it's the same damn distance, right? So try to establish something in that regard, and Buffalo could have and should have. When you go back and watch this game, if you guys DVR the games like I do, you will see Devin Singletary in the flat. You will see it. Louis Asinato says, play calling because the inability to run the ball was terrible. Not just this game. Most games, the defenses are on us. One-dimensional doesn't win championships. I like that because it doesn't. That's just true fact that being a one-dimensional football team wins you 0 in this league. So good comment, Louis. Brent says, winning the East looks questionable now. I think the Bills will win the East. That's something that I'm still holding on to. But I'd be lying to you if I thought that it would be by maybe one game. And holy hell, I didn't think I'd ever say that. But New England's got a quarterback. Mac Jones is a legitimate quarterback. I've been saying it since April that if Mac Jones went to New England, we would find ourselves in the crosshairs of the Patriots. And the Patriots are well coached. They got the best coach of all time. They have a young quarterback that looks very good, that I've been impressed with, frankly. And they're right in our crosshairs now with this pitiful, pathetic loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. David Reed says, I think we still win the East, but we can kiss that number 1 seed goodbye. It's unbelievable. This was an opportunity for the Bills, based on what happened last week, to really open things up in the AFC and take the reins, I should say, of that number 1 spot. And they lose to a team that's got 1 win on their record. What a joke. What a joke. And you know what? I was so mad, David, that when I left the bar I was at watching the game, it makes you feel after this game that you don't even care how this season pans out, because it's just, I hate to say that, and I don't mean it when I say it, but that's just how I felt. It's just a terrible, embarrassing loss. Eric Williamson makes a great point that Gabe Davis has become a non-factor for this offense, and it's something that I talked about in last week's show. Where is Gabe Davis? Why is Gabe Davis not getting the ball? Why is Gabe Davis become an afterthought in this offense? And I'll go to another thought here, and Eric inspired me to throw this out there. It's the last somewhat tagline of the show. How can the Bills build back better? How can the Bills build back better? So it's frustrating to me that the Buffalo Bills have had opportunities to make their team better via trade, via free agent, and they haven't even sniffed at it. They've scoffed at it. They haven't even attempted it. You had two tight ends that were available in Zach Ertz and Evan Ingram. I put the tweet out that the Buffalo Bills, at Ryan Thomas Take, that the Buffalo Bills were very interested in Evan Ingram, the Giants tight end, in wake of Dawson Knox's hand injury. I thought it made perfect sense to be interested in a tight end, especially of Evan Ingram's athletic acumen. Or Zach Ertz. When Zach Ertz, he's been injury prone, but Zach Ertz is Zach Ertz. When he's out there, he's a dynamic force at the tight end position. And I thought, as a franchise, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me. I don't think I am, but correct me if I'm wrong. The Buffalo Bills are not in a position to need draft picks or to even use draft picks that they have as a team, because we're right there. This team is right there. We are on the up and up. Don't let this game fool you in that. The players are still there. We know who we are. We know what we are. We know what we can be. We've seen that. It's the same team that beat Kansas City, that smacked them around, and we're also the same team that lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So somewhere in that angle, I guess I could say, there's a team in the center of that's the team that we got to find. That's the team that we got to find to create consistent results. And I'm a little bit frustrated at the fact that we're rolling in there with just Tommy Sweeney at tight end. I think that the Bills can do better than that. I feel at this time there needs to be more of a sense of urgency. When someone goes down, we got to fill that hole with someone that can actually fill it, that has actually shown starting capability, starting production ability at that position, whether it's at guard, whether it's at tight end. That's what I am very frustrated about, is that Zach Ertz and Evan Ingram are out there. We're out there. Ertz got traded to Arizona, to the Cardinals. But Brandon Beane didn't even take a swing at it. And I don't understand that. I think that that's a very lazy move on his part at this point. I'm not saying Brandon Beane's a bad GM. For Pete's sakes, I'm not saying that. But to my point of, we have a very small window of opportunity here to make this team a Super Bowl contender. Why not take a swing at it? That's what makes Buffalo different from Tampa Bay, from Kansas City, from Green Bay, from New Orleans, from these teams that they leave no stone unturned to find a way to make their team better during a season. There's the off season, and then there's the season. The off season and the season does not mean that you just stop making moves. If there's someone out there that can make this team better, by all means, please go get them. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about when I say that. There is another guy out there that the Buffalo Bills can put a waiver claim on, that I asked everybody about whether they think the Buffalo Bills should go get him, and I'm talking about OBJ. Do I think the Buffalo Bills will go get OBJ? No. Do I think the Buffalo Bills should go get OBJ? I mean, I love Madden. I'd do that move in Madden. I'll just say that. But that's not where the problem lies with this team. this team does not need another wide receiver. This team needs more depth at the offensive line. They need a better game plan with the running backs, and they need another running back. They need a battering ram of a running back as well. If Buffalo had Derrick Henry, let's just say if Buffalo had Derrick Henry, this team would be world beaters, in my opinion. That's the difference. Because at least Josh Allen can make throws. At least Josh Allen can roll around and do things that not many quarterbacks can do. Ryan Tannehill can't do the things that Josh Allen can do. If you close your eyes and imagine the thought of Derrick Henry in a Buffalo Bills uniform, that's a scary, scary team and a scary, scary thought. Daniel, I will not botch your last name, Daniel. I won't do it. Let me see. Sewestinowitz? I don't know if I said it right. But there was one that just got claimed. I understand. I've said this to my buddies before and they laugh at me, but Adrian Peterson was out there. Would we be asking Adrian Peterson to do what he did in Minnesota in 2012? No. He's 35, 55 years old. I'm obviously exaggerating there, but that would have helped, I think. That would have helped. Brayton Mosher III says they need a better offensive coordinator as well. Fun story. A couple years back when I was really, I don't want to say I was bursting onto the scene because that makes me sound arrogant, but I was starting, the podcast was really getting bigger and I was going on other shows and stuff like that. I talked specifically about, I wanted Brian Dabo fired. I have not been a Dabo fan. Those that know me know that. But I had, people saying, "Oh, that's the terrible take. It's an awful take. It's this, it's that." I don't think I'd miss him. As a matter of fact, I know I wouldn't miss him. As a matter of fact, I know that Brian Dabo, let's say he leaves the Buffalo Bills. Let's say he goes to the Raiders as the head coach. Let's say he goes to, I don't know. Let's just say he goes to another team, any other team outside of Kansas City and Tampa Bay. So obviously, he wouldn't be going there. Andy Reid's not going anywhere, I don't think. And Bruce Arians isn't going anywhere, I don't think. So let's just say Brian Dabo goes to a team. No matter what, that team and that offense is not as potent as Buffalo's long term. Because Buffalo long term has one hell of an offense, right? With Allen here locked up for 8 years, with Diggs locked up here for 8 years. Not 8 years, 4 years, I'm sorry. I think he would struggle if he left this team. I think he whittles down the talent of this team with his poor play calling. I think his success with this team is in large part to the fact that we have a team to work with. You notice back when Dabo was first here, we weren't really where we needed to be offensively. And that was largely due to his play calling, and we didn't have the talent. But once we got the talent, once we got Stephon Diggs, once we added some depth along the offensive line, that is still not a finished product by any means, of course, that's when you saw the success from Dabo. And that's not what makes a good coach to me. What makes a good coach and a great coach is a good coach can manage a team with decent talent, can work with a team with great talent. A great coach can make one side of the ball or both sides of the ball better, depending on his position, whether he's a head coach or an OC or a DC. A great coach can make a team with little talent elite or far above their expectation, far above their talent level, play beyond their talent level. And can anyone tell me a time where Brian Dabo has done that? People can say, "Oh, with Josh Allen, he's done this for Josh Allen." You guys know the stories. Josh Allen worked out with Jordan Palmer all offseason. Josh Allen is known to be close with Ken Dorsey. I'm not saying Dabo and Allen aren't close. I know they are. But the thought that all the credit or the majority of the credit for Allen's success should go to Dabo is egregious. I think that's really silly. And it actually undermines the progress that Josh Allen has made as a player. To Eric's point, Dabo calls plays like he thinks Josh Allen still has to prove himself. And I remember hearing Josh Allen say, well, if I don't like a play, I'll check out of it. I haven't seen that yet. Have not seen that yet. So, Josh, check out of those plays. Vu Gaming says the refs. Now, I'm really glad that they just got this simple comment up here as far as the refs go, because in this game, and I watch a lot of football, okay, but in this game, you saw calls made in this game that are rarely ever made in the form and fashion that they were made in today. It was pathetic. It was soft. It was pitiful. And it was a flat out joke. Some of these calls that were made, especially these unnecessary roughness calls that were made. And whenever I make a reference to a bad referee, people, it's easy for someone to roll their eyes and say that, oh, you're just making excuses. You're just, you're not giving Jacksonville the credit, or, oh, you're not, stating the obvious that Buffalo is not where they need to be, or whatever they say, right? Whatever they say, say whatever you want, right? That's the great thing about this country. You can say whatever the hell you want. But these refs control the game. When they make calls like that, it drastically impacts the game. It's to a point today where the game wasn't even allowed to be played. The game was not even allowed to be played by either team, regardless of who had more penalties, the Bills or the Jacksonville Jaguars. The game wasn't even allowed to be played on a functional level because these referees made calls that they never make in other games. I'm not saying these names like John Smith made this call. I'm saying refs in general made calls today that they never make. Okay? And when that happens, it just takes the fun right out of football. When that happens, that's what turns a casual fan of football into a casual fan of another sport. This league has taken so many hits these last few weeks. John Gruden and his emails, Henry Ruggs and his irresponsible actions, as well as Aaron Rodgers and the whole fiasco that has played itself out with him in Green Bay, with the NFL and the vaccines and all that. And then you have this. Refs controlling the outcome of games by throwing a flag and saying unnecessary roughness, number 10, Buffalo Bills. Number 10 on the Buffalo Bills is Mitchell Trubisky. I don't remember if it was an unnecessary roughness penalty, but I'm just spitballing to the moment of calling a penalty for a player that is on the COVID list that isn't even active. Getting it confused between 10 on one team and 10 on another. It's embarrassing. It's laughable. It's pathetic. It's pitiful. It's a joke. It's a joke. The NFL has whittled itself down into this soft gummy bear football league, the likes of which I really hope my next generation, whether it's like a son someday or a grandson, of course, I hope they never see this version of football because it's terrible. It is terrible. It has turned the product into garbage, and it's only going to get worse. I hate to say it. It's only going to get worse. We watch football in this area because we love our Bills. But you know it and I know it. The NFL is nowhere near as good as it once was. It's still at the top. But what does that say about the other sports? That the other sports haven't progressed enough to supplant the NFL. Meanwhile, the NFL has whittled itself down as a product. It's a worthy thought to close out the show. Very worthy thought to close out the show. So, with that being said, I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Went a little longer today, 45 minutes rather than 35, but I think it was a worthy extra 10 minutes here on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, Bills post-game show. I love bringing you guys these post-game shows. It's therapeutic for me, especially after a loss like this one. Very frustrated, to say the least. This was not how I anticipated things would go today, but nonetheless, it's how they went, and it is what it is. We have an opportunity to answer back. We have an opportunity against the New York Jets next week, and they better answer it, because what we watched today was very worrisome. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thomas Take Sports Podcast Bills post-game show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, everywhere. YouTube, Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take as well. I have actually lost interest in Twitter at an alarming level. I mean, in comparison to how I used to tweet, years back, last year, year before, these last 2 years with COVID and everything, I get so sick of seeing people debate things that are just not sports oriented, and I get it, but I'm on Twitter for sports. I'm not on Twitter for political garbage. I watch sports to get away from that, and yet I use Twitter to tune into sports stuff, and I can't get any sports stuff. I get political crap. So I guess there's a way to mute words and mute things, and I'm going to have to look into that. So I can get back on there and get back to doing what I do best, putting out content for you guys, the Buffalo Bills fans, Bills Mafia everywhere. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in next week as I preview and recap next week's game. Bills, Jets, the New Jersey Jets, Buffalo, New York Bills, the New Jersey Jets, not the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills. We got one team in New York, and it's the Buffalo Bills. You guys know that. Take care, everybody. Let's go, Bills. And, of course, my next episode of the show, for you guys that are mixed martial arts, combat sports fans out there, my UFC 268 post-fight reaction podcast is coming up. So stay tuned for that. My thoughts on Kamaru Usman's welterweight title defense against Colby Covington, Rose Namajunas defending her title against Weili Zhang, and, of course, the slobber knocker that was Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler, the thriller at MSG, as it's being called by Teddy Atlas. Take care.